if you have kids, you have to slow down to the pace of childhood development. Making a fucking mess is part of the process. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Caitlin. First of all, I may be changing my social media handles. Maybe, I don't know. I feel weird having like my full name there in an age of like saying quote unquote the wrong thing on social media can get you put on a frickin' list. What with all the fascism. So you'll probably still know it's me. It's not going to change too much. It might be something like Ask Fish Fisher. That's my website. Or it might be it's probably still going to have fish or fisher in it. Or I might just leave it because I'm probably already on a list. Who knows? I don't know. If you've got advice, let me know. But I would like to take you on a little journey today and talk to you about when I was in college. So when I went to college, I wanted to be a biology teacher because I really, really loved biology as a student. Like sophomore year, I'm 16. I'm learning about evolution and natural selection. And like, I just freaking loved it. I absolutely adored biology class. And then I took AP biology as a senior, and I still pretty much liked that. It was a little more intense. There were more dissections. But the point is that I wanted to be a biology teacher. So I get to college, and I'm pretty sure I had an education major at first. And I also wanted to minor in Spanish. And I might have been trying for a double major. And they were like, you can't do all this in 4 years. So you would have to do 5 years. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take 5 years. So I just changed my major to biology and Spanish. And I figured I could maybe get a job at a private school. Maybe I'll go for like a master's or something like before I become a teacher. But I did want to stay in biology. College biology was less my jam. First of all, it was a lot of plants. I didn't super love the plant biology. I probably would nowadays, but at the time I was like, this is boring. Show me kingdom Animalia. I want to know kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Like I really like I like physical sciences like rocks and geology and the fact that the Appalachian mountain range is the same as the Scottish Highland mountain range. Like give me Pangea and I'm set. I freaking love Pangea. Plate tectonics, scrumptious. And then I also love like evolution. In fact, a guy who works in my office. So I got a part-time job. I work at this office 3 days a week. I'm a tax preparer, so that's fun. So if you need your taxes done, give me a shout. We can do taxes in any state, but we are based in Ohio. So preference, I guess, goes to people in Ohio because we don't have to Google it. But we've actually been getting inquiries from other states because I convinced my boss to let me start a Threads account, and our Threads account blew up in like the first week. We've gotten like 500 followers, which is not a ton of followers, but it's also not 0 followers for a tax company to get people like actively following. And we've actually gotten like 2 or 3 inquiries of people who want to hire us to do their taxes. So I'm feeling like pretty hot shit, TBH. So it's like a building with like multiple offices in it. And then like the landlord rents out the offices to people with small businesses. So like we've got a massage therapist. We have a therapist. There's a woman there who owns a cleaning company. There's a photographer, I think, who has an office there. He mostly does real estate photography. So like we don't see him much. He just kind of like has this as a home base, I suppose. And then we have tax prep. And then there's another financial advisor. So my boss is a financial advisor. That's like a separate business from the tax business. But then there's also this other financial advisor in the office, and he's very friendly, and we talk like every single day. And he's just like an older guy who like, he's got like dad energy. Like he'll just come around and he'll strike up a conversation about whatever's going on. He was just at the doctor getting his knee looked at because I don't know. I've heard all about this man's knee and like his Christmas plans and seeing his kids and his ex-wife and all this stuff. And like, I don't know, he's very charming and adorable, and I would adopt him if I could. But he was talking to me. He's like, I just don't get evolution. Like who decides we need to grow a horn? You know, like how does evolution happen? And so I'm like kind of explaining evolution, and probably the fact that I could just immediately start a conversation about the theory of evolution may have thrown him off, because you probably, when you're throwing that out there, you probably don't expect an autistic nerd whose special interest is like Charles Darwin and the finches to be right there being like, oh, well, here it is. And I was just sort of explaining, like, the giraffes don't all have a meeting and say, we're going to reward these giraffes with longer necks because they can get more food. Like, there's no meeting. There is just survival. And then over time, the giraffes with the longest necks can reach the most food and they will survive easier. And so over time, over millennia, natural selection selects for the advantageous trait, right? So this is why, like, we evolved more advanced, prefrontal cortex cognition and bigger brains, and we can use tools and stuff. And that's why, like, when we see, like, oh, bonobos also kiss for pleasure, like they make out. Bonobos are making out in the jungle. And I'm like, I can't wait till they figure out credit scores. I think there's also been some observation of monkeys or apes, I'm not sure the species, starting to like domesticate wolves. I want to say it's baboons, but I'm not sure. We'll fact check that. It'll come up over here. Fact check. I love it. I love pressuring my producers. I'll be like, hey, it's right here. Put it right there. Mwah. Love it. So we're talking about evolution. We're talking about just sort of like how species change over time and like the gradual changes. And that's the kind of biology that I'm really into. I love like biodiversity. I'm super into that. Biodiversity, biomimicry, like when we design something because of something that we've observed in nature. And we're like, oh, well, we can do what a butterfly does, and we're going to do it with this machine, and it's going to be super cool. I'm going to look into that and come up with some examples of it. And maybe I'll try and write a blog post about it, or we'll just do another episode about Caitlin's special interests. Honestly, why am I not doing that? Why am I not doing a little Caitlin special interest corner? All this to say, I enjoyed biology. And I enjoyed it a little less when I got to college, and it was hard. Like, I'm going to be honest, it was harder to get good grades in college bio than it was in high school bio. And it came very easily to me in high school. And then in college, I was learning things like, like the processes by which a cell manufactures a protein or something, and I'm like, there's adenosine triphosphate and there's the phospholipid bilayer. And, I'm also kind of into cells. I think cells are interesting. But there was one day in lab where we came in and there were live mice, and we were supposed to kill the mice ourselves and then do a dissection of like a freshly killed mouse. And I had to walk out of that one. I could not handle that one. So I was like, okay, well, I don't super care about looking at all of these slides of plant cells, and my professor just had to kill a mouse for me. I think I'm going to change my major. So I changed my major again, psychology in Spanish, because when I came in to do my education degree, I started with educational psychology. So my very first semester at college, I am taking ed psych, and I am like a savant. After our first exam, the professor came up to me and asked me if I would lead a study group for everybody else in the class, because like I was the only one to get an A on our first test. And this is when we realized Caitlin has a very special interest in psychology. I freaking love brains, you guys. I love brains so much, which is partly why I really enjoy using like hypnosis techniques, because, maybe it's like a little bit bullshit when you're like quack like a duck on a stage, but you can actually really use hypnosis to like get your brain to stop intellectualizing so much shit and just like let you rearrange things. And it's just so helpful. It's so helpful when you know things about like neuroscience. Now, am I a neuroscientist? Absolutely freaking not. But I have learned some things and I can do some things. And I'm trivia night knowledgeable. I'm not Jeopardy knowledgeable on psychology, but I am trivia night. I majored in it. I took a lot of classes, but the very first class I ever took in psychology was educational psychology. And this is where I learned a lot of things that have affected me since then. So for one, I learned the discussion was around like how people of different classes react when they get like a windfall of money. So your like middle class person is going to save that money, and a lower class, heavy air quotes, it was 2006. This is what we're talking about. A more lower socioeconomic status person is more likely to spend it. And like the example that the professor gave was like, you know, you will see kids who have like lunch debt and stuff come in and they've got brand new shoes. And that's because when someone who's poor gets money, they will take care of a need right away. So like the way that then we see this, or the way I have seen this play out in my own life, is like when money comes in, I would love to save it. But I have been a little bit poor. Money's been tight for the past couple years. Business has been decreasing along with my mental health. We're making headway on that. We're working on it. So I had a bit of like a downturn there, and I'm very lucky, very privileged that my household has kept me afloat. Like they're not pressuring me to like pay more toward the bills. Like I'm contributing in the ways that I can, and everybody's cool with that. Pretty sure I've mentioned that 8,000 times on here. But that's because I stay grateful. I remain grateful every single day, and I'm going to talk about it every single time I can. So what I learned in this class, and this is just one little nugget, is, you know, like somebody who is of a very high socioeconomic class is probably going to invest a windfall. A middle class person is going to save for a rainy day, and a lower socioeconomic class person is going to buy something with it, because otherwise it's going to get eaten up by fees or bills or whatever, collection agencies. Being poor is freaking expensive. Being poor is so expensive. Like Terry Pratchett wrote once about like the difference between a poor man who has to buy a different pair of boots every year versus somebody who can buy like one pair of boots that is very high quality and will last like years and years and years. And so you end up with like the poor person having to spend way more money on way less boot of lower quality over and over again, because it is expensive to be poor. Buying things that are high quality that last a long time takes upfront money that poor people don't have. So, blah, 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 blah. I wasn't even here to talk about that. What I want to talk about is Erik Erikson. And I'm like, first of all, I have questions for his parents. Why would you name your kid that? But also, I think perhaps he was born in 1902. So maybe they're still doing that thing that's like Erik, son of Erik. I don't know, but Erik Erikson is crazy to me. So in addition to learning about like students from different socioeconomic backgrounds and how they may react differently to things in the classroom, we also learned about childhood development, which guess what? It's another special interest of mine. Obsessed with it. Why? Trauma, probably. So Erik Erikson came up with this psychosocial stages of development. And in these psychosocial stages of development, there's basically like, he determined, you know, in infancy from like age 0 to 1, you're dealing with like this psychosocial development element. And then early childhood, you're dealing with another psychosocial, psychological, those backwards, psychosocial development, sort of like assignment, task, thingy, what we're going through. So fairly consistently, infants have to learn trust. So the first stage of Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development is age 0 to 1, infancy, basic trust versus mistrust. So basically what this means is, do you feed the baby? Does that baby know that if they cry, you will come and check on them? Basically, if you show up when your baby cries, they're probably going to learn basic trust. When I cry, when I have a need, my mom comes, my dad comes, somebody comes to take care of me, I get fed when I'm hungry, I get changed when I'm dirty, etc. So if this goes wrong, if there's some neglect, if feedings are too far apart, you know, like if the baby has to spend a lot of time hungry, if the baby spends a lot of time crying because nobody's checking on them, then this like fundamental building block of psychosocial development can start from a place of mistrust, basically expecting that like the world is not going to show up for your needs, that it is hard to get your needs met, and potentially even that you're on your own a lot of the time. Now, my own example, I know that as early as 6 weeks old, my mom started putting cereal, like rice cereal, in my bottle of formula. She says, because it made me sleep all night. Babies are not supposed to sleep all night. Babies are supposed to wake up, get milk, go back to sleep, wake up, get milk, go back to sleep. And part of that is SIDS prevention. Like the baby is not supposed to sleep super, super deeply. That could be dangerous. So yeah, 6 weeks old, cereal in the bottle. Not great. And in fact, not good for like the gut either, like the gut biome. Baby's not supposed to have anything but milk or formula for the first at least 6 months to a year. So we had a kind of an early interruption on the trust versus mistrust because like, yes, I was fed, but was I appropriately fed? I kind of think no, because I was fed in such a way that it was for her convenience so that she didn't have to feed me as often, which is a little neglectful. I'm just going to throw it out there. Now, did my mother do absolutely worse neglect later in her life? Sure, yes, but this is my first exhibit of my mom being a bit of a neglectful parent. So our key activity here is feeding and consistent caregiving. And what we get from this is hope. So properly attuned, properly fed, properly tended to, babies, infants will learn hopefulness, will learn basic trust, versus the basic mistrust can lead to anxious attachment and like a basic view of the world as an unreliable, unsafe place. So no pressure. So yeah, this is something that it's really important. Like if you're a baby and you learn right away that like you're not safe, that affects a lot of your development moving forward. And that's the thing about Erikson's stages is they do like build on each other. So I have bitched about Maslow's hierarchy of needs before because I don't like that it's modeled like a pyramid that like you have to achieve like one after the other, and then you get a little self-actualization cherry on top. And we can link to my Maslow's hierarchy of needs episode in the show notes as well. It's a banger. It was the top episode of the audio version of the podcast in 2025. My best performer on YouTube was about estrangement from your parents. So I wonder why I'm estranged from my parents. I don't know. Well, I talk to my dad now. Doesn't matter. So why I bring this up, along with brains, along with hypnosis, along with stuff, is that like when we talk about inner child work, we can get more specific. We can do inner child work that is early childhood. We can do inner child work that is teen child work. Like when I'm working on my inner teen, that's a much different paradigm than when I'm working on like my inner 7-year-old. So I wanted to go through the psychosocial stages because each one gives us something different that we can work on with our therapists, in our journals, with shadow work, with magic, if that is like your preference. You know, maybe you want to get a crystal that represents something. I think I showed some shiny rocks a couple episodes ago. But like having something specific to anchor that inner child work to, for me as an autistic ADHD person, that's really helpful. Because otherwise it's just kind of vague. And I'm like, okay, well, my inner child, well, as a child, I liked ice cream, so I'll go get ice cream. Like, that's not necessarily the thing. The basic trust versus mistrust, you know, I have an eating disorder. Can I trust that I'm going to feed myself when I know I'm hungry? Unfortunately, no. So like that is the repair that I have to do. I have to get in there and literally start to think about how I'm noticing my body. Am I having hunger signals? Do I need to go eat something? And something that I've been doing for this is it's really hard for me to like get fruit and eat it before it goes bad because there's peeling and there's chopping and there's whatever. Like maybe you have to wait for it to get ripe, like a banana or an avocado. But the last time I got fruit, I asked my roommate, hey, I'm going to get strawberries. Can you wash them and cut them up? And she did. And I got to eat some strawberries. So like that was a way that I was able to ask for help to do this work for myself where I trust that I am going to be able to eat food. Now that's like a very loose example. Let's see. Consistent, dependable care helps the child feel a sense of security and trust. They understand that when they have a need, someone will be there to provide for that need. Okay. So when you don't have that, that child learns, okay, well, if my needs get ignored, like I'll still survive. It'll be fine. I just will assume that nobody's here to help me. That's rough, buddy. You deserve better than that, I say to myself. So stage 2, I'll talk about stage 1 and 2 in this episode. And then I'll try and talk about something else for a minute. And then I'll come back to Erik Erikson later. Or maybe we'll just do it all in a row. I don't know. You're trapped here with me. You subscribed. P.S. Please like and subscribe. Subscribe to my channel. It helps other people find my channel. It's good. Also, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, if you could go ahead and leave me a 5-star review, that would be awesome. Thumbs up for you, because that also helps more people find the podcast. And my goal in 2026 is to focus most of my energy on growing the podcast and growing the YouTube channel. So that's my dream. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That's what people say on YouTube, right? And maybe send this episode to somebody who has a special interest in brains or Pangea. Beautiful. Okay, so stage 2 of Erikson's psychosocial developmental stages, that's a mouthful, is autonomy versus shame and doubt. So this one is happening in very early childhood, like toddler years. So we're talking like 18 months to 3 years old, in that walking around, starting to talk range. So this is where babies start to get a little bit more independent, right? We start to walk, we start to talk, we can actually ask for things specifically instead of just wailing about it. So toddlers begin exploring the environment and asserting independence in tasks like dressing themselves or choosing foods. Now, this gets to be very frustrating because sometimes you give a kid the juice they wanted and they're like, I didn't want the purple cup. And you, an adult, have to be like, it's the same juice, but okay, I'll go put in a purple cup, because that is developmentally appropriate. This child is seeing what happens when they make requests from their own sense of autonomy. And I know that it is so annoying because I have babysat a lot of kids and I have been a nanny and I have worked in daycares. And man, when they wanted the purple cup and you didn't give it to them, that sucks for everybody involved. But we're gonna talk about the importance of that autonomy, because this is, again, a very important time of a child's development and life where they need to know that they have a say. They have a say in what they wear. They have a say in what they eat. They are starting to get opinionated. And that's a beautiful, wonderful, developmentally appropriate thing for them to do. If you are not prepared for all of the frustrations of having a child, please don't have one. This is partly why I was sterilized, because I don't think I have the patience, even though I love children, even though I would probably be fine, but it would be too triggering. Like, the way that I have explained it to other people is I don't know if I could handle raising a child and realizing how easy it is to love them even when they annoy me. Because if I'm there and I feel it and I feel frustrated but not abusive, I think it would break me to understand that that was a choice my mother made. I don't want to think that or think about it. So instead, I just had my tubes removed so that I cannot procreate. Fun facts. I do plan to foster LGBTQ teens, though, because queer teenagers need a safe adult and a safe place to land, and a lot of them get kicked out of their homes, and I'm not going to stand for that. So, if caregivers encourage the efforts of these opinionated toddlers, the kids come away with more confidence in their ability to handle challenges. Whereas if a parent or caregiver is sort of critical of the choices that the kid is making, or they're more like controlling, like, I don't have time for you to decide what to wear today. You're going to wear the green pants and you're going to like it. This leads to shame and doubt and a lack of trust in oneself. And I know that my parents were okay with this at some point. I do remember when I was like 5, I wore the same pair of purple shorts like every day for an entire summer. And they must have been washing them when I went to sleep, because every single day I wanted to wear the purple shorts. They were like checkered, like lilac and more of like a deeper purple. We'll just call it violet, lilac and violet, and like teeny tiny little checker pattern. And then there were white daisies in the print. And I freaking loved these shorts every single day. And that's an autonomy thing. The way my dad says it, because I asked him about the shorts now that we're back in touch. And he was like, yeah, drove me nuts. But your mother was just like, whatever, let her wear the shorts. I'm like, thanks, Mom. She like accidentally got one right out of apathy. But like, hey, whatever. She let me wear my shorts. I learned that I get to wear my shorts. But unfortunately, that was like a one-time broken clock thing, because for the most part, she was very controlling about what I wore, especially as I grew. So anytime I needed a new size, that came with a huge guilt trip. So growing, not allowed. I was allowed to get taller, but not fatter, even though it was like still a normal child. Oh my God, there's another thing. Hold on. I'll be right back. Okay, so one of my Christmas gifts from my dad this year was that he has a bunch of our old school photos. So I would love you to look at this adorable child, okay? If you're just on the audio version, you're missing out because I am a super cutie pie. You can see that's 1998. I am 10 years old. Can you imagine being mad at this kid because they need a new size of pants? Like rage, like incandescent, shame-filled rage at this little baby. Anyway, so when my dad gave me these pictures, I looked at them and cried because that was all I could think about is I was looking at this objectively a child version of me, and I was looking really hard for a reason to hate her, and I could not think of a single one. And I don't know. Through the years, you can see the light go out of my eyes. So here's middle school. I am still not opening my mouth when I smile. We still have sort of the most unobtrusive glasses I could find. Hair is pulled back. I wear overalls. I wore like baggy clothes because I felt really bad about my body because my mom taught me that. So, everything's fine. But some of this is definitely down to like childhood development stuff, like how I was treated as a kid and what that taught me about like how I fit into the world and what space I am allowed to take up. So our key activity during the autonomy versus shame is learning self-care. So like learning to dress myself, potty training. I potty trained myself real quick, did not like to be dirty, did not like to be wet. As soon as I could wear underwear, I was wearing underwear, which is different because my sibling, according to legend, would walk around till the diaper fell off from the weight. So they did not mind the sensory hell of a wet diaper. They just kept being like, well, I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's also on ADHD, man. Like, I'm busy, but I couldn't stand it. So I was very fastidious. I think Freud would probably have words about how much I didn't like diapers and how much I wanted to be toilet trained. Maybe I'm anal retentive. I feel like that's a Freud word. And what we gain when this phase is treated with, secure attachment and allowing the child to develop their sense of autonomy is we get our own sense of like free will. Like this is where we start developing, I'm a person and I get to make decisions about what I do. Awesome. You get to do that as early as like 18 months old. By the time you are 3, you should actually be a person. You're not just a little pod looking around being like, oh, hey, you have a human face. I have a human face. Look, I found my foot. Man, babies have such a cool life. So entertained by their own feet. I love babies. But if you are a child whose parents were like, you're taking too long, let me do it. Maybe they get in and they tie your shoes every time instead of letting you practice tying your shoes. And so then you end up with Velcro shoes because you never learned to tie your shoes because your mom always rushed you. That was not my case. I learned to tie my shoes pretty age appropriately. I think I was like 5. But when the child is shamed for trying to act on their autonomy, this can lead then like later in life to an overdependence on others, like outsourcing their ideas. They're like, oh, where should I go on vacation this year? Where do you want to go on vacation? But they don't think they get to choose. They think they need other people's input. So that's a common issue for you. And you are constantly trying to like get other people's outside opinions in order to feel secure in your own decisions. There could be like a childhood wound in this stage, in this autonomy versus shame and doubt stage, because it's not that hard to be affirming. There's actually an example here. So there's a little script. So not effective is you're taking too long. Let me do it. More effective is you're working so hard to put on your shoes. Keep trying. I'm here to help if you need me. So offering like an option for help, affirming that you see the kid is working on it. Important. We cannot expect children to just already be fully functional people. They're learning how to be here for the first time. I mean, reincarnation maybe, but like that body is only 2 years old. Like it's trying to put on pants. This little baby is trying so hard. Oh, there's like a whole section on toilet training. I'm going to skip the toilet training one because I'm more interested in purple checkered shorts. So success and failure here. Erikson states that parents must allow children to explore the limits of their abilities within an encouraging environment that is tolerant of failure. Another thing that comes in here is risky play. And risky play is like letting your kids climb on a rock or go up high on something on the playground, or go outside and jump in a puddle, even though they have the wrong shoes on for that. And those are important, even though they are frustrating. That's the key. If you have kids, you need to be prepared to slow your life down to the pace of childhood development. That should be on a fucking t-shirt. Write that one down. If you have kids, you have to slow down to the pace of childhood development. It's almost like being autistic, right? Like we need to know the reason behind something. You can't just be like, you can't go outside with your sneakers on, it's raining. How is that related? Who cares? I put my shoes on. Shoes are for go outside. But you kind of need that kid to go get soaking wet through their shoes, have that terrible experience of wet socks on their feet, come in, be sad that their shoes are wet, and then you teach them how to deal with the consequence. You teach them, okay, we're going to put our shoes in the dryer, or we're going to put our shoes over the heat vent so that they dry out. You teach them, this is why we wear rain boots, because rain boots are waterproof. And then you let them go back outside in the rain boots so that they can tell the fucking difference. We have seriously lost the plot on allowing kids to experience things and learn. We just are like, no, I know better, so do it this way. When like making a fucking mess is part of the process. It is true in your 30s, talking to myself. It is true when you're 3. You have to experience things and adapt. You have to learn. You cannot just be handed a recipe to follow, because it feels weird and disingenuous and like a simulation. So I'm so sorry, but you have to let your kids ruin their shit a little bit. They need consequences. And like, I'm not saying let them climb a mountain and fall and like crack their head open on a rock, but like let that kid jump up on a rock and then jump off the rock. You know, they're probably going to be fine. Slipping and falling, saying things like, oh, be careful. That can actually like hinder development here, because they learn to be like way too cautious. And if you are sort of helicopter parenting, then like that kid is going to learn like, I can't take any risks. And, you know, that affects how they're going to save for retirement. TBH. I'm really going in hard on childhood development, and I'm just going to allow myself to do that because I really am genuinely interested in this. It is a special interest of mine. I love learning about childhood development, and I especially love the way that refreshing myself on child development is helping me with like trauma healing, where I can go back and say, okay, so in the autonomy versus shame arena, what can I remember? Can I remember a time when I was allowed to have autonomy as a kid? Journal about that. Can I remember a time when my autonomy was denied as a kid and I was shamed for the choices I wanted to make? Oh yeah, lots of those. Write those down. Journal about them. Bring them to Jared or whoever your therapist is. I highly recommend Jared. Not really. It would be weird if all you guys went to my therapist. But if you need a recommendation and you're in Ohio, let me know. He's pretty good. So those are our first couple stages here. Let me know in the comments. Do you like this? Do you want some more psychology with Caitlin? Because I'm freaking into it. Like, yeah, let's do like some child development, shadow work, even. Zesty. I'm going to leave you with one more childhood photo that's really funny. I need to censor it though, because in the 80s, you could take naked pictures of your kids. So this is just me wearing only my brother's goofy slippers. There was a series of these photos. They were family favorites. They got shown to boyfriends. Like, they were just so funny. And, you know, it is kind of funny. So that's little me. This might be an autonomy versus shame thing. Maybe getting the camera to laugh at your kid putting on goofy slippers while they're naked is not autonomy building. Don't be gross. Don't be weird. Don't be weird. Great. So those are the first 2 stages of Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages of development. That's a mouthful. I would love recommendations on if like this research has been updated with regard to neurodivergent children, like autistic ADHD, if there's any research on like psychosocial development and complex PTSD. Please tell me. I want to read those books. I want to learn. This is like one of those things where like roughly every like 6 months or so, I'm like, should I get a master's in psychology? Should I get a master's in counseling? And then I'm like, no, because you don't need to be taking out more student loans. But I just am so freaking interested in this. It's crazy. Maybe I'll go see what Khan Academy has. I've been taking an art history course on Khan Academy, and it's really adorable. Like, the course itself is not adorable. I find it adorable that I was like, I want to take an art class, and so I did. And I love you, and I'll see you later. And I can't wait to talk more about brains. Okay, bye.
They'll change your approach and tell you a joke to lighten your load and help you along or sing you a song. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do.